The Omagh bombing was a car bombing that took place on 15 August 1998 in Omagh, County Tyrone, Northern Ireland. It was carried out by the Real Irish Republican Army, a provisional Irish Republican Army splinter group who opposed the IRA's ceasefire and the Good Friday Agreement. The bombing killed 29 people, and injured about 220 others, the highest death toll from a single incident during the Troubles. Telephoned warnings had been sent about 40 minutes beforehand, but were inaccurate and police had inadvertently moved people towards the bomb. The bombing caused outrage both locally and internationally, spurred on the Northern Ireland peace process, and dealt a severe blow to the dissident Republican campaign. The Real IRA apologized and declared a ceasefire shortly after. The victims included people from many backgrounds: Protestants, Catholics, a Mormon teenager, 5 other teenagers, 6 children, a woman pregnant with twins, 2 Spanish tourists, and other tourists on a day trip from the Republic of Ireland. Both Unionists and Irish nationalists were killed and injured. It has been alleged that the British, Irish and US intelligence agencies had information which could have prevented the bombing, most of which came from double agents inside the Real IRA. This information was not given to the local police, the Royal Ulster Constabulary. In 2008, it was revealed that British intelligence agency GCHQ was monitoring conversations between the bombers as the bomb was being driven into Omagh. A 2001 report by the police ombudsman said that the RUC Special Branch failed to act on prior warnings and slammed the RUC's investigation of the bombing. The RUC has obtained circumstantial and coincidental evidence against some suspects, but it has not come up with anything to convict anyone of the bombing. Colin Murphy was tried, convicted, and then released after it was revealed that the Gardaí forged interview notes used in the case. Murphy's nephew, Sean Hoey, was also tried and found not guilty. In June 2009, the victims' families won a £1.6 million civil action against 4 defendants. In April 2014, Seamus Daly was charged with the murders of those killed. Background: negotiations to end the Troubles had failed in 1996 and there was a resumption of political violence. The peace process later resumed, and it reached a point of renewed tension in 1998, especially following the deaths of 3 Catholic children in Orange Order-related violence in mid-July. Sinn Féin had accepted the Mitchell Principles, which involved commitment to non-violence, in September 1997 as part of the peace process negotiations. Dissident members of the Provisional Irish Republican Army, who saw this as a betrayal of the Republican struggle for a united Ireland, left to form the Real Irish Republican Army in October 1997. The RIRA began its paramilitary campaign with an attempted car bombing in Banbridge, County Down on 7 January 1998, which involved a £300 explosive that was defused by security forces. Later that year, it mounted attacks in Moira, Portadown, Balleak, Newton Hamilton and Newry, as well as bombing Banbridge again on 1 August, which caused 35 injuries but no deaths. The attack at Omagh took place 13 weeks after the signing of the Good Friday Agreement, which was intended to be a comprehensive solution to the Troubles and had broad support both in Ireland and internationally. Omagh had been bombed twice before. On 17 May 1973, 4 off-duty British Army soldiers were killed by a provisional IRA booby-trap bomb while getting into a car outside the Knocknamo Castle Hotel, Omagh. One died of his injuries on 3 June 1973. On 25 June 1973, 3 provisional IRA volunteers were killed in a premature bomb explosion while travelling in a car on Gortine Road, near Omagh. The attack, preparation and warnings. On 13 August, a maroon Vauxhall Cavalier was stolen from outside a block of flats in Carrickmacross, County Monaghan. in the Republic of Ireland. At that time it bore the County Donegal registration number of 91DL 2554. The perpetrators replaced its Republic of Ireland number plates with false Northern Ireland plates, and the car was loaded with 230 kilograms of fertilizer-based explosives. On the day of the bombing, they drove the car across the Irish border and at about 14:19 parked the vehicle outside SD. Kell's clothes shop in Omagh's Lower Market Street, on the southern side of the town centre, near the crossroads with Dublin Road. They could not find a parking space near the intended target, the Omagh courthouse. The car had arrived from an easterly direction. The two male occupants then armed the bomb and upon exiting the car, walked east down Market Street towards Campsie Road. Some Spanish tourists stopped beside the car, and were photographed. The photographer died in the bombing. 3 phone calls were made warning of a bomb in Omagh, using the same code word that had been used in the real IRA's bomb attack in Banbridge 2 weeks earlier. At 14:32, a warning was telephoned to Ulster Television saying, "There's a bomb, Courthouse, Omagh, Main Street, £500. Explosion 30 minutes. 1 minute later, the office received a second warning, saying, "Martha Pope bomb, Omagh town, 15 minutes. The caller claimed the warning on behalf of Ógaláin Éireann. The next minute, the Coleraine office of the Samaritans received a call stating that a bomb would go off on Main Street, about 200 yards from the courthouse. The recipients passed on the information to the Royal Ulster Constabulary. The BBC News stated that police were clearing an area near the local courthouse 40 minutes after receiving a telephone warning, when the bomb detonated. But the warning was unclear and the wrong area was evacuated. The warnings mentioned Main Street, when no street by that name existed in Omagh, although Market Street was the main shopping street in the town. The nature of the warnings led the police to place a cordon across the junction of High Street and Market Street at Scarf Sentry. They then began to evacuate the buildings and move people down the hill from the top of High Street and the area around the courthouse to the bottom of Market Street where the bomb was placed. The courthouse is roughly 400 meters from the spot where the car bomb was parked. Explosion. The car bomb detonated at about 15:10 BST in the crowded shopping area, killing outright 21 people who had been in the vicinity of the vehicle. 8 more people would die on the way to or in hospital. The deceased victims included a pregnant woman, 6 children, and 6 teenagers, most of whom had died on the spot. Those who were killed were James Barker, Sean McLaughlin and Oran Doherty, from County Donegal, Fernando Blasco Baselgar and Rocio Abad Ramos from Spain, Geraldine Breslin, Gareth Conway, Breda Devine, Aidan Gallagher, Mary Grimes, Brenda Logue, Brian McCrory, Sean McGrath, Jolene Marlowe, Avril Monaghan, Maura Monaghan, Elizabeth Rush, Philomena Skelton. All Catholics: Deborah Ann Cartwright, Esther Gibson, Olive Hawkes, Julia Hughes, Anne McCarmab, Samantha McFarland, Alan Radford, Veda Short, Fred White, Brian White, and Lorraine Wilson. All Protestants were killed. Injured survivor Marion Radford described hearing an unearthly bang, followed by an eeriness, a darkness that had just come over the place. Then the screams as she saw bits of bodies, limbs or something, on the ground while she searched for her 16-year-old son, Alan. She later discovered he had been killed only yards away from her, the two having become separated minutes before the blast. In a statement on the same day as the bombing, RUC Chief Constable Ronnie Flanagan accused the RIRA of deliberately trying to direct civilians to the bombing site. British government prosecutor Gordon Kirk UC called the warnings not only wrong but meaningless, and stated that the nature of the warnings made it inevitable that the evacuations would lead to the bomb site. The RIRA strongly denied that it intended to target civilians. It also stated that the warnings were not intended to lead people to the bombing site. During the 2003 Special Criminal Court trial of RIRA director Michael McKevitt, witnesses for the prosecution stated that the inaccurate warnings were accidental. Aftermath. The BBC News stated that those who survived the car bomb blast in a busy shopping area of the town described scenes of utter carnage, with the dead and dying strewn across the street and other victims screaming for help. The injured were initially taken to two local hospitals, the Tyrone County Hospital and the Erne Hospital. A local leisure centre was set up as a casualty field centre, and Leeson Barracks, an army base, served as an impromptu morgue. The Conflict Archive on the Internet Project has stated that rescue workers described the scene as battlefield conditions. Tyrone County Hospital became overwhelmed, and appealed for local doctors to come in to help. Because of the stretched emergency services, people used buses, cars and helicopters to take the victims to other hospitals in Northern Ireland, including the Royal Victoria Hospital in Belfast and Altna Galvin Hospital in Derry. A Tyrone County Hospital spokesman stated that they treated 108 casualties, 44 of whom had to be transferred to other hospitals. Paul McCormack of the Northern Ireland Ambulance Service said that the injuries are horrific, from amputees to severe head injuries to serious burns, and among them are women and children. The day after the bombing, the relatives and friends of the dead and injured used Omagh Leisure Centre to post news. The Spanish ambassador to Ireland personally visited some of the injured, and churches across Northern Ireland called for a national day of mourning. Church of Ireland Archbishop of Omagh Robin Eames stated on BBC Radio that, from the Church's point of view, all I am concerned about are not political arguments, not political niceties. I am concerned about the torment of ordinary people who don't deserve this. Reactions. The nature of the bombing created a strong international and local outcry against the RIRA and in favour of the Northern Ireland peace process. British Prime Minister Tony Blair called the bombing an appalling act of savagery and evil. Queen Elizabeth II expressed her sympathies to the victims' families, while the Prince of Wales paid a visit to the town and spoke with the families of some of the victims. The Pope and US President Bill Clinton, who shortly afterwards visited Omagh with his wife Hillary, also expressed their sympathies. Social Democratic and Labour Party leader John Hume called the perpetrators of the bombing undiluted fascists. Sinn Féin leader Martin McGuinness said that this appalling act was carried out by those opposed to the peace process. Party President Gerry Adams said that, I am totally horrified by this action. I condemn it without any equivocation whatsoever. McGuinness mentioned the fact that both Catholics and Protestants alike were injured and killed, saying, all of them were suffering together. I think all of them were asking the question, why? Because so many of them had great expectations, great hopes for the future. Sinn Féin as an organisation initially refused to cooperate with the investigation into the attack, citing the involvement of the Royal Ulster Constabulary. On 17 May 2007, McGuinness stated that Irish Republicans would cooperate with an independent, international investigation if one is created. On the 22nd of August 1998, the Irish National Liberation Army called a ceasefire in its operations against the British government. The National Consortium for the Study of Terrorism has accused the Republican paramilitary organization of providing supplies for the bombing. The INLA continued to observe the ceasefire, although it remains opposed to the Good Friday Agreement. It recently began decommissioning its arms. The RIRA also suspended operations for a short time after the Omagh bombing before returning to violence. The RIRA came under pressure from the PIRA after the bombing. PIRA members visited the homes of 60 people connected with the RIRA and ordered them to disband and stop interfering with PIRA arms dumps. The BBC News reported that, like the other bombings in the early part of 1998 in places like Lisburn and Banbridge, Omagh was a conscious attempt by Republicans who disagreed with the political strategy of Gerry Adams and Martin McGuinness. to destabilize Northern Ireland in that vulnerable moment of hope.